Welcome everyone to the Builders Coach Show. Great to have you back. If you're new to the channel, then welcome. This is where we share updates, news insights. We answer your questions and let you know what's coming up in our world. So what have you got today, Jess?
Yeah, maybe first of all, guys, if you want to stay up to date with all the content, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Kurt, I know you talk to a lot of builders throughout the week, and I thought we could maybe kick off this show with a bit of a conversation about margins.
Absolutely. A hot topic with our builders, right? Margin. And the big question is always, what margin should you ideally price your work at? And if you're in the Builders Coach community, it's very easy, 25% margin. Now, there's a difference between markup and margin. I won't go into those specifics now, but to achieve a 25 margin, you need a 33 markup. Now, the most common question I get asked when I start talking about a 25 margin is, well, how the hell am I going to win work if my margin's that high? And I actually spoke to someone this morning about exactly that. So I'm going to unpack it for you guys. First and foremost, you do not compete on price. All right? Don't compete on price. What you need to do is differentiate. That's really, really important. So how do you do that? Well, the first thing you can do is specialize on niche. Become a cardiologist. Is the reason cardiac surgeons make a whole lot more money than general practitioners. Okay, so be the Mercedes-Benz, not the Toyota. Okay, that's going to put you in a different league straight away. And by virtue of being a specialist, you already earn credibility and trust. Let's think of any specialist you know out there. Just by virtue of them saying they're a specialist, you're really going to pay more attention. And also, when you get the bill, you're going to expect that it's going to be a little bit higher, right? Otherwise, something's wrong. So that's really important. It can take time to dig a groove in your specialty, but there's something you can do to get immediate credibility and trust and to differentiate, and that is to use a well-defined sales process. So all our builders use a 6-step sales process. If you don't have a well-defined, consistent sales process, that is, you take your clients through, you can get a copy of ours in my book, $1 Million Builder. It's on Amazon, it's on Audible. In the book, I share all the documentation. Okay, so I'm not going to go through all the different steps now, but what I can tell you is that it's well engineered. There's 6 or 7 steps that you take people through that quickly build credibility and trust, because you say you're going to do something and then you do it. And while you're taking them through those steps and you're doing what you say you're going to do, you're also educating them on the importance of getting accurate numbers and on your process for ensuring accurate numbers as well. And by the time you get to that initial site visit and you present them with a pre-em agreement or a cost analysis solution, it makes perfect sense. And they will pay you money, I can tell you now. And in fact, I put a challenge out there to anyone who's not charging for quotes. I can get you charging for quotes and the person paying you money to thank you for the privilege of paying you for a quote. Okay? Let that sink in for a sec. Now, the other thing you can do to further leverage is to outsource the quoting to someone who's better at quoting than you.
Yeah.
All right. So we have some of the best estimators in the country that we point to. And what's that going to do in terms of freeing up time? Well, that's hundreds and hundreds of hours. And it's also why that sales process is a day one conversation with all the new builders I work with. We get that put in place, and within 2 to 4 weeks, they're charging for quotes. They're outsourcing ideally to someone else, using an estimator that not only takes that time off their hands, task that everyone enjoys. I know you probably enjoyed quoting, right? Not. So you're giving it to someone else, and because they're better than you, they can teach you about everything you need to know about doing an accurate cost analysis. A lot of our estimators work with builders and very quickly find out that, hey, you know, charging $20 an hour too little for carpentry or for labor or whatever it is based on other guys in the area. So you're collaborating with the right people. That's a value add in and of itself. Okay, just having a process and a system and a team for accurately formulating those numbers or that cost analysis is a huge value add in an industry where there's not a lot of trust and where the numbers are all over the map. Like, we get architects who get asked by clients, what's this going to cost, right? The architect doesn't really know because they're not in touch with the suppliers and the trades, but they'll, have the client push them and go, you've been doing this for 25 years. You must have some idea what it's going to cost. Eventually they'll go, okay, maybe $1 million based on previous jobs I've seen similar to this one. The quotes come in at 1.5 and 2 million. All right, so that's happening every day of the week. So you've been able to do this better than a quantity surveyor. Most people mistakenly believe that because they're getting a bill of quantities, a detailed breakdown of a quote, that makes it accurate. It's not. All right, so I know I'm laboring this point now, but really having a process for accuracy is a huge one point of difference in credibility builder in this space. So that's how you want to position yourself, as well as being a specialist in custom homes, architectural homes, peak performance homes, whatever it is. That's that. Don't compete on price. Make sure you've got a specialty. Make sure you've got a front-end sales process that ensures accuracy of numbers and educates people on how you do that, and also the importance of that, of them not becoming a statistic, okay? So with that in mind, you need to know, guys, anyone listening, right, you have a duty of care to your clients to ensure accuracy of numbers. Right? When you look at, and this is happening a lot and it's very sad, when a builder goes under on a job, if someone's building their dream home and while that home's getting built, they're renting somewhere else. If that builder goes under, yes, it's embarrassing and sad for the builder and they'll experience some pain. However, and there's a real life story I know of up in Queensland where a builder went under recently. He was working on a $3 and a $5 million build. He's got a job now, and you can get a job tomorrow for $300,000 a year as a builder. Your expertise are highly sought after. So your family's not going to starve. You're going to be able to put food on the table. But for that client that's renting, and then what, insurance companies going to pay out 20%? The pain is significantly worse for them.
Yeah.
All right. So you have a duty of care to ensure that you are financially sound to offset and mitigate the risk to your client. So that needs to, one, be communicated, and then you need to recognize that, because this is a mindset that you're not putting your margin up because you want to profiteer. You're putting your margin up because you want to protect your client. And you would do that for any family or friend that you cared about. If you loved and cared about them dearly, you would do that. And you want to do the same thing for your clients. And you can communicate that to them, but they'll pick that up. Like, people can sense whether you're full of BS or whether you genuinely care. So just coming from that space, and again, I'm hammering this point home because a lot of the guys I work with, just getting their head around this margin, especially if their margins are 10 or 15%, it's a big jump. It's almost double. Okay, but you're doing it so that you offset the risk and exposure to your clients. And 25 is the sweet spot for me. 20% is the minimum margin. Okay, so where do I get that number from, right? The 20%. So here in New South Wales, where we are, there's a thing called the Home Building Compensation Fund Guidelines. And the government here and the insurance companies went through the rubble of all the bankruptcies to establish why builders went under. And what they established is that margin, a low margin, was one of the number one contributors. There were other things like cash flow as well, but margin was one of them. And then they came up with metrics, specific margin metrics, to indicate the risk to a client from that builder's margin. And 13% or below, high risk, almost guaranteed, not if, but when that builder is going to go under. 13 to 19% moderate risk, 20% that risk starts to be reduced to a point where it's safe. So hence why, in my opinion, 25% is the safe zone, or 33 markup. It's great to have those numbers because it's credible third-party empirical evidence to show that that margin needs to be at a certain point. The other thing is, you guys need to comply with whatever local government legislation or federal government legislation there is in play in terms of being financially sound. Plus, you need to comply with certain financial criteria in order to get insurance to build for your client in the first place. So I find that fascinating, that the people squeezing you on margin also need you to comply with certain margin criteria in order to even get a license to build a house that they want. All right, so it's fascinating. But I know not all states or territories have specific metrics that they need to comply with. I know, like in Queensland, for example, they have the NFRs, which are just, they just stipulate that the builder needs to have some sort of financial controls in place. And it talks about what, like profit and loss, chart of accounts, balance sheet, but it doesn't give any specific metrics or numbers. So it's great that we do have those numbers to point to. So bottom line, numbers need to be strong to protect your clients. And offer an accurate cost analysis and become the Mercedes-Benz. All right. Now, some people might be going, yeah, but if I just specialize in one type of work, what if there's not enough of that type of work? Okay. If there's not enough of that type of work and the town you're living is like population 11, maybe you should move somewhere else. Okay. That's always an option as well. So really, you want to be a builder who knows these numbers and offers a service for accurate cost analysis that is better than a quantity surveyor. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, hopefully, if you build well, and some of you are exceptional builders who are award-winning, on top of that, I mean, the trust and credibility you get, there are people out there who will want to pay you more money. Okay. If you don't build well, if your standards are low, and this is all about standards, then I can't really help you. You've got to keep raising your standards and then hold those standards there as best you can. Okay, on a completely different topic altogether, how was that video on the humanoid robots? Elon Musk talking about those humanoid robots. I think it was early last week, right? I saw this video where he said there's going to be more of these robots than there are people at some point. He predicts anyway. Like, everyone's going to want one. They're going to be able to produce that for about $20,000. And it's basically just something that they're going to encase AI in. So we'll use ChatGPT, and if not that, you've all Googled different things. So you're going to have this humanoid robot that you can ask questions to, but not only that, it's going to have the ability to clean your house, unpack your dishwasher, take your dog for a walk. And I think it's phenomenal. I absolutely freaking want one.
Yeah, I think it sparked a little bit of a conversation, debate between you and I, right, over the weekend.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, great. I love someone to do all the cooking and cleaning around the house. But I mean, ultimately, they could be right here sitting, doing your podcast also.
Absolutely. And I think why not program that thing before you go to bed? Like give it a list of tasks to do, right? Besides cleaning the house, get it to do some research online, suss out your competitors, create some marketing tools, generate some reels, do the podcast while, we go and look at some real estate. I think if it's coming, why not? Like if you go back to the 80s and 90s before the internet, there were people that were like, we don't know about that, and you're definitely not going to spend money online. I mean, everyone does it now, right? And how much better is our life? How much better off are we because we have access to accurate information like that at our fingertips? So this is just putting that in a machine it's going to take so much off our hands. It's going to free us up even more. Now, yes, of course, some people are going to be lazy, right? And just sit around doing nothing, watch Netflix, eat potato chips on a couch. But there's others of us that will exercise more. We'll be able to learn more things. We'll be able to go out there and exercise our creativity more, add more value, look at run multiple businesses. It's going to be phenomenal. And there's no back chat from the machine, right? You're not going to get emotional backlash about things. I'm feeling tired. I've got a headache. It's just going to get down, do some work. It's going to get to know you. Imagine it's going to know your sense of humor. It's going to know what foods you like. It's going to be able to cook for you. Go to the supermarket. You can send it to the shop. Forgot butter. Remember on the weekend we needed butter. We just go, hey, go fetch it. And it's going to run. There's going to be another component to it as well, where people are going to have better relationships with humanoid robots than with people. And that's obviously not going to be a good thing. There's a downside to this as well. But I think on the whole, it's more positive than negative.
What else happened this week, Kurt?
There was so much that happened, so much to talk about. I have to cut things out. But I had an interesting conversation with one of my regional builders, and we were talking about the importance of recognition with team. So, he's at a stage where he's building his team culture and, setting the values and extracting that from his team so that they take ownership, responsibility, and there's buy-in from them, because people don't sink the boat they're rowing in. But we were talking about the importance of recognition, so giving people a pat on the back, but doing it in a way that you don't screw it up. And I've seen it happen. It's fascinating that can actually backfire and blow up in your face, right? Giving people recognition, but not doing it properly. So it's important to know that you can't manage where you don't measure. So you need to measure performance for your team and for yourself as well. You need to have metrics for performance measurement, right? And then when someone's performing well in a certain metric, you point to that metric and that performance, and then congratulate them. And ideally, if you do it in front of the team, that you get a boost in motivation and everyone's got a spring in their step. But if you get it wrong, if you just go out there and you just like generically just go congratulate everyone, hey, well, you're doing a great job, it can go wrong. And there's an example of someone I worked with. It was back when I started coaching. This guy had like a manufacturing business, and he recognized that he was not connecting with his team as much. So he wanted to go out and interact with him. So he did. He made time on his calendar every morning at about 10 o'clock. Sorry, I'm laughing because it was quite funny what eventually transpired and explained to you in a sec. But he went out onto the factory floor and he would go up to guys and go, hey, thanks for the great job you're doing. And so it's just, if you were there, you had to, as well as things, you had to be there. It was funny as hell. Anyway, I'll get to it in a sec. I'll get to the funny part in a sec. But He was walking out onto the factory floor, congratulating guys. There was one guy in particular who he would walk up to, pat on the back, thank you for all your efforts. And everyone else on the factory floor knew that that guy was the laziest, naughtiest, worst behaving guy on the team. And he would see the owner come in, the director, owner of the business. You'd see him come in, he'd pretend he's working really hard. And then the director would walk up to him on the back. This went on for months, maybe even a year or two. And eventually we decided to get the team together in a room, about 40 people there, maybe even 50. And it was like an update on where the business is, it's progressing, it's moving forward. And then we did what's called an Indian rain stick, which is to, just grab a pen or something. There was something we passed around, and everyone had a chance just to give some feedback, just what their thoughts on what was happening. And eventually, and the rule was, whoever had the rain stick had the floor. They were speaking, and while they were speaking, everyone else had to keep quiet, weren't allowed to say anything. And this one guy got the pen. It was his turn to talk. And he had been in the business 17 years, and he unleashed 17 years of his opinion of what he thought of the director specifically. And he did not stop. He went for about 10 minutes, and he just said what an idiot he thought the owner was, and explaining how the owner walks in, patting this guy on the back when the guy shouldn't even be there. He's like the biggest, idiot in the company. And the owner just got redder and redder in the face. It's like a beetroot, right? You could see the steam coming out of his ears, but the rule was, that talk. And when the guy finished, he handed the pen on to someone else of his choice, and that other person spoke. So I had to go around the whole room before it finally got back to the owner, and then he had a right of response. But it was like, I don't know whether to laugh or cry. It was like obviously embarrassing for the guy, but I tell you what, you'd never have forgotten that lesson. That's for sure. Blew up in his face spectacularly. So it's important to acknowledge your team, but don't just do it willy-nilly without recognizing where you need to, focus it on areas where they actually are doing well, and everyone on the team knows that they deserve to be acknowledged for that.
Hey, why don't you tell me about an awesome comment that came from one of your clients this week?
Okay, this is classic. I even wrote it down. All right. So this guy said to me, he said he was listening to some content, I've been listening to my book, whatever it was, and there was something that jumped out at him, that it doesn't matter what they are saying about the outside world, you can still make your world good. And that ties in beautifully with unplugging from the media. Don't listen to the naysayers, don't listen to the negativity. It's all about you taking responsibility. The more responsibility you take for creating your own world, your own economy, and you literally can create your own economy where there's more demand for you than you can supply. And then that way, and that's what your marketing and sales processes should do, is stack the demand, overbook the flight. And then you can have a great environment. I've had this happen with so many of my builders, some of you guys listening, where the rest of the world is going into a recession. There's a downturn. Everyone's crying poor. But you booked out, and it's because you're the Mercedes-Benz in your market. You've created that demand. You've got a sales process for deselecting any toxic people or people who aren't a good fit, and you've got a sushi train of profitable work, it's positive cash flow, and the profits going into developments, and life's a beautiful thing.
Awesome. Well, thanks for all these updates from the week. I'm sure you've got plenty others, but what I want to do now is maybe just talk about the development workshop. So it's coming up this Friday in Brisbane, and I think it's the third one, right? Development workshop.
It is the third one, yeah. I thought it was the fourth. It's actually the third. You're right, because we had one in Sydney, then Melbourne, and now it's Brisbane.
How did it come about? Why a development workshop?
Yeah, so development workshop was born out of our Seven Figure Club guys. So my job, as I always say, is to give you a tax problem, right? It's about optimizing your profit, your cash flow, your world flow. And once you start making decent profit, which let's face it, most small businesses don't. 90% of businesses, especially builders, don't make a net profit. Most of them, or some of them, earn a decent wage. Okay, so they may earn 300 grand a year wage, but there's no net profit, but they're happy, they've got no boss, they work for themselves, and they're making good money. Kids go to good schools, all that sort of thing. But once you're making $500,000 or $1 million a year net profit after that sort of wage, then you've got a tax problem. So you can either hand that to the government, and we know they're going to spend it well, right? Not, or you can start buying some real estate, doing some flips, and in the same way that we get our clients to set up their business systems and processes builders using best practice processes. You don't really just do it okay or well or good or very good. It's what's the best process for your sales, for your marketing, your admin, your finance. We want to do that with the development arm as well. So specialize in custom homes or architectural builds or high performance homes. You can also specialize in doing certain subdivisions, townhouses, tiny homes, and then get a high level of efficiency with that development arm as well, while you offset the tax, which is what we're trying to do there. It's offset the tax. You still need to pay tax, of course, and be compliant in every area. You can genuinely build generational wealth with a development arm. So that's what the workshop's about.
Awesome. So do you still have a few spots available for Friday?
Absolutely. We've got a couple of spots left. So if anyone's interested, make sure that you can email us info@builderscoach.com.au. We can send the registration link across with all the information. I'll tell you what we're covering off though. It's all about timing the market, what market conditions are like at the moment, how to do an accurate feasibility, finance. Development's all about finance. It's a game of finance. So looking at all the different finance options. There's the banks, there's outside of the banking system. There's organizing personal finance through clients, friends, family. Even crowdfunding's a thing now. Also, it's a big thing, but it is an option. It's how to structure things correctly. We've got an account covering that off, town planning, all the pre-construction stuff, as well as different exit strategies as well that you can go into your developments on.
Awesome. Sounds great. We'll put the link for the registration also in the description of this audio. Like this, if anyone wants to register, there's still a few spots available.
Would love to see you there. And we've got a couple other events coming up as well.
Yeah, you want to tell us about those?
Worth mentioning. Adelaide, 26th of July. That's coming up next month. Mm-hmm. And then Perth, 20th of September.
Hey, we've got time for a bit of a Q&A. So we did get a question from someone that
did we?
Yes, nice. We did. The question was around group coaching. So specifically, do you do group coaching? What's your view on it?
Okay, so in my opinion, group coaching doesn't work as it relates to peak performance, right? And optimization. So we're all about optimization. Mm-hmm. Most builders come to us now because they want to get into that illustrious 7-figure club, net $1 million over a 12-month period, take that money, set up a development arm, or channel it into a development arm and create generational wealth. So if you're going to try and do that in a group coaching environment, it's not going to work. The reason being, every business is different. Every person is different. There's a lot of nuance with leadership, with mindset, with the sequence of systems implementation. And while you do get outliers, I mean, I've had one guy read my book and get into the 7-figure club, and there's guys that can do group coaching and absorb information and then implement it and get results. It's still no contest. Even those outliers, if we could clone them and then one of them worked with a personal coach who is very good at what they do and understand the nuance of the system implementation and them as an individual and a leader, it's going to be no contest. The speed of implementation is going to be a lot quicker with a one-on-one coach. What I find as well is a lot of clients that do group coaching, there's a buffet of different resources and it can become overwhelming, and some people eject just to switch off the noise because it becomes too much. In saying that though, people that are starting out, they're still young and they can't afford, if you can't afford a coach, one-on-one coaching, and really there's no reason why you shouldn't, even if you put on a credit card, bearing in mind that the whole purpose of the exercise is to make you more money. So from our experience, within 12 weeks, the coaching should be generating enough cash flow to more than pay for itself. And then you offer it away. I'll give you an example of a young bloke that came to us. It was turning over about $500,000, him and an apprentice. He couldn't afford one-on-one coaching. So we have a group coaching model, and he was involved in that, where he was able to access information and get some sort of roadmap in place. Plus, he was motivated and driven enough to implement what was shared with him. Within 6 months, he came onto a one-on-one coaching program, and he's now in the 7-figure club. He got into the 7-figure club in his early 30s, late 20s. So netting $1 million and doing exceptionally well. So the group coaching program as a stepping stone to get up into one-on-one coaching, you can do that. We've got our Silver Circle program. If you're interested in that, just email Silver Circle in the headline of the email. We'll get someone to have a conversation with you. Someone from our office will book in a call to have a conversation around the specifics and how you can get involved in that program. Last word on coaching and coaching fees. I find it fascinating that people will spend $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year to send their kids to a private school to get education. Mm-hmm. And I'm all for quality education. You send your kids to a private school, your environment does shape you, right? So being around people who are good role models, good leaders, they've got high standards, good values, a lot of the schools are steeped in tradition. It's a good thing. And you just got to look around in any community. Not everyone that goes to a private school is going to be an upstanding member of the community, but a high percentage are. Okay, so people buy into that concept or that level of education, but they question spending similar money, 30, 40, 50 grand a year to learn how to make $1 million a year for the rest of their life that can then spill over to their family and friends in the community, and they can take that knowledge, because once you know how to do it, no one can take it away from you, and you can take that knowledge and share it with family and friends as well. So I find it fascinating, just the mindset with not everyone, but some people that don't recognize what it is that they're paying for when they pay for coaching. That the outcome is them understanding, or you understanding how to do it yourself for the rest of your life. And what's that worth? And what's it costing you to not do anything? I also want to say, in terms of taking responsibility, like I know there'll be people listening that are going through a difficult time. No one has exclusivity on a difficult time. There could be, financial difficulty. It could be relationship challenge. And what I want to say to you is hang in there, okay? Everything eventually passes and moves on. Sometimes it feels like it never will. But I'll challenge you as a leader, all right, to take responsibility. The more the responsibility you take, the better. And you may be in a situation where you feel like, you've been hard done by, maybe someone betrayed you, maybe someone stole from you, whatever it is. And it's easy in that situation to develop like a victim mindset and a poor me. And yes, you've got to go through whatever grieving process, but I'll challenge you to take full responsibility of your response to a situation, because you can only control what you can control. And in some situations, if it's a really difficult or desperate situation, the one area you have control over is how you respond, how you choose to respond. So, crying, moaning, complaining, and let's face it, a lot of people do that about a lot of different things, including the government and everything else that is not going their way. Mm-hmm. That does not help or change anything one little bit. Okay, so if you have to have a pity party, have that, but then take responsibility, and most importantly, do something. Okay, do whatever you can, and you'll get through it.
Awesome. Thanks for that. I think that's a wrap up for this week.
Guys, thanks for joining us. Make sure you subscribe, annihilate that like button. We'll see you on the next call.